Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
Inside Mariupol's besieged steel plant, a symbol of bravery and terror holding fast to her infant son, Anna Zaitseva ran toward a pair of metal doors at the Azovstal iron and steel works. It was the last Thursday of February, barely 24 hours after the start of the Russian invasion. In soon-to-be devastated Mariupol, the Kremlin's bombs were already falling, some only yards away from their 9th-floor apartment. They had driven that morning to a lot at the Soviet-era steel plant. One of Europe's largest, it employed 10,702 people, including her husband. Now, for workers and their families, it was the shelter of last resort. A commercial complex, Azovstal was also ideal for war. A network of tunnels rested beneath an industrial site twice as big as Washington's National Mall. Its deep nuclear shelters, complete with old maps and radiation containment plans, dated to the Cold War. The bunker quality of the place also made it a perfect fortress for Ukrainian fighters, a brave and ultimately besieged force that her husband, a new metal worker at the plant, would soon join. "I couldn't stop my tears that first day," recalled Zaitseva, 24, one of scores for whom the prospect of a few days at the plant would stretch into months, and exact a painful personal cost. "My husband took me by the arms and told me, 'Look at me, Anna. Everything will be okay.'" After 2.5 violent months, the standoff at the Azovstal plant appears to be entering an endgame. The Hollywood-esque last stand by outgunned Ukrainian fighters, who had based their final resistance in the sprawling compound as the city around them fell, could still end in several ways. Hope exists for a last-minute deal that could stave off a final tragedy, granting some, at least the last civilians and the wounded, safe passage out. The remaining soldiers, a force Ukrainian officials say still stands at nearly 1,000, have vowed to fight to the end if help does not arrive. Such an act would turn the 47-day siege of Azovstal into perhaps the Ukraine war's greatest symbol of bravery, like World War II's Dunkirk, without the rescue. Azovstal is also a symbol of terror. There were 1,000 civilians there at one point. The Kyiv government says 100 may still remain. They largely lived in separate bunkers inside the same compound as the city's last defenders. As Russian stonewalling delayed evacuations, they huddled in shelters that shook from the immense power of Moscow's bombs. Hunger-stricken children cried as rations ran out. In recent days, the soldiers at Azovstal, many from the Azov Regiment, a Ukrainian nationalist outfit that has fought pro-Russian separatists for years, and is particularly despised by Russian President Vladimir Putin, proclaimed themselves abandoned by their own nation, and by the world. While Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has sought a deal for their safety, he has conceded that one remains elusive. With rescue still out of reach, the soldiers have fought on, viewing death by combat as preferable to the humiliation and brutality of Russian capture. A lot of people gave up their lives, here for the sake of the defense of Ukraine, for the defense of the free world, Lieutenant Ilya Samoilenko, a bearded 27-year-old officer from the Azov Regiment, said during a May 8 video conference with journalists. "We cannot just pack our bags and leave. We're encircled. We're blocked in 4 directions. We've spent all of our resources. Here we are dead men," he continued. "Most of us know this." Inaugurated in 1933, the Azovstal metallurgical plant spread across 4 square miles on the shores of the Sea of Azov. It contained a coking plant, a lime shop, a blast furnace, a converter shop and a powerful rolling mill. During the Soviet era, prisoners from Siberian gulags used Azovstal steel to lay the 2,687-mile-long Baikal Amur railway that stretched from Moscow to the Russian Far East. In 1943, retreating Nazis who had overrun Mariupol 2 years earlier laced the plant with explosives. When ignited, the blast shook the town like an earthquake. The rebuilt complex was presciently outfitted with bunkers, accessories common in Soviet-era factories, office buildings and tower blocks. Big enough to hold 4,000 people, they were kept stocked with supplies of water and food. For good reason. In 2014, workers' families fled there when pro-Russian separatists laid siege to Mariupol, briefly holding the city center before being beaten back. That made the plant, owned by Rinat Akhmatov, Ukraine's richest man, a logical military stronghold. Russian officials would claim that Ukrainian forces used the civilians who sought shelter there as human shields, an accusation the Ukrainians denied, and that did not stop the Russians from bombing the plant. Civilians went there for the same reason the military did, because it was the best protected, most